Okay, so now let's see what's happened with albums in the new Forever. So let me click on albums here from the front page. As always, you can get to it along the sidebar here as well. And you'll notice that all of our albums are still kind of showing up in order. These ones I've got them sorted right now, A to Z. You can always change your sort by, so you can see your albums by start date. If you do a lot of dates, I don't use dates for all of mine, so I don't use this much. I don't have very many of these dated with start dates. But that is something that I can show you in another video as far as the albums go. Mostly I leave them sorted by name A to Z. You can also sort them by name Z to A. You can use this anytime to kind of change things around, and there's a search bar up here. And remember, as we've talked about before, if someone else has shared a link to an album that you've gone to before, you can always go back to find that by clicking on this Visited Albums button. It looks different, but it's still the same thing where you'll still get back to the albums that you've viewed before that were shared with you that you don't own. They're not ones that are in your account. So let's go back to my albums here. And one thing you'll note now is, like, let's say I go over here and I click on 1980s. My 1980s folder has, pictures in it here, but you don't see all the nested albums that used to be up here on along the top here. Let me go to a different album. I'm going to go to my 2010s. A little bit more recent, and I think I've got things slightly better organized here. So yeah, in my 2010s, and again, this organization system is based on that Big Rocks challenge that I did over the summer, and I'm going to reshoot that with the new setup here shortly, so everybody will get a chance again to kind of go through that challenge. And I'm thinking that that's going to be pushed back into the new year, just to give everybody time to focus on what really matters around the holidays coming up. So all right, enough said on that. So I'm in my 2010s album, and you can see there used to be a place here where I'd see all of my nested albums, but now these are all over on the left here. So if I want to see my nested albums, they're not showing in the middle screen. You have to look over here on the sidebar to find those nested albums. And I know that there's been a little bit of feedback to Forever about this. People kind of liked having it visible in this main screen, so I think that might be coming back, but it's not back yet. So currently this is what we're seeing here. My 2010s album, you can see I can look at what groups I've got it shared with. And the cool thing, if you'll notice, it used to be that the filters were all something that you used primarily in the gallery, or the library as it used to be called. But now we can actually use our filters, those same ones that I talked about in the last video, inside albums as well, which is awesome. I'm not going to go into that again. You've got all your same little, or pretty much your same little icons up here, but we're not going to go there. What I'm going to do is talk about how you're going to get to your nested albums, because, so like if I click on 2010 here, and it's loading all that. So I've got all of my 2010 here. I can use my filters to go through it. But let's say that my screen is reduced here. So if I've gotten into an album here and I look over here on the side and I'm like, how do I don't even see what I'm trying to look at. Oh, that didn't work. I went back to my top level. If your screen is reduced, or you're looking at this on a mobile device or a phone with the browser option, what you're going to need to look for when you're trying to get to nested albums is this little arrow down here. It kind of hides, but this is where you can pull your menu back out. And as you can see now, I can see where my nested albums are. So if I wanted to go back to 2010, there it is. And so I click on that, and guess what? It went away again, because it's trying to give you as much space here as you can get to actually look at, you know, your blurry photos. Obviously, I don't delete often enough, and there are a few pictures that I need to update to, but why would I want to delete these pictures? Anyway, beside the point. If I want to go back and find and get back up the tree, or find other nested albums, I need to come find this little arrow down on the bottom to maximize my menu so I can get to where I want to go. And I can either go back to my top level here. I can actually go back to the whole front album screen by clicking on this arrow up here that says albums, and we kind of go this way. And now everything's right here. So let's say that I wanted to Let me go to the 90s and see if there's something I can organize here. Yeah. So there's some pictures in here that are dated 2024 that I haven't, they just got recently converted. I have to figure out what the years are. So let's say I need to put, let's say I know which year this one is. So let me click on this. There's two ways to get it put into the right, I know it's from the 90s, so it has been put through my Big Rocks Challenge. I've put it into the 90s, but I haven't organized it into a nested album yet for the right year. And I know for a fact that this was 1997. So, because this was actually taken on the weekend that my husband and I got engaged. So let's say I want to make sure I put that in the 1997 album. I can check it here and then come up here to organize at the top, and I can move it to an album. So I'm already in the 1990s, and my 1997 album, as you've seen before in the Big Rocks Challenge or anything else, my 1997 album is actually nested inside the 1990s. So what I'm going to do is check on that and click organize, and I'm going to move it to an album. If I clicked add it to an album, it would add it to 1997, but it would also leave it here in the 1990s. And my goal here is to get these organized into the appropriate year and not have them in both, because then it doesn't help me so much to find them in this area. So I'm going to move it to 1997. So what I would do, you can see the 1990s in my album list is grayed out. I'd click on this little arrow over here, and I'm going to scroll down to 1997, and I'm going to drop it in there, and oh, it disappeared. And you see my little success notice down here, and it will let me jump to that album if I want to. Excuse me, sorry. Now, one thing to note, if you ever see this popping up with something other than success, like it's got a red error sign, one thing I've learned recently is that might mean that you need to clear your cache. I'm going to have a totally different video about clearing your cache, but that is something you might need to do. So anyway, I will have a link for that also coming up, just so that you know that if there's ever an error that pops up, that can be a big helpful. I've already had to deal with that, and that's why I'm mentioning that. So now that I've showed you where you can find this to pop your menu back out, I'm going to go ahead and maximize my screen again so that we can all see this whole thing instead of seeing my partial background. So again, but you notice over here my menu is still kind of minimized, and there's still little arrows down here where I can maximize that menu, and then there's another one so that I can actually maximize all of my nested albums. So I can pull out both menus so that I can see where I'm at. Typically when I'm going through my nested albums, I don't need to toggle back to tags or gallery, so I can keep this one minimized off to the side, and you can still see the icons and get to those things fairly easily if you want to do it that way. This will give you more space for actually working through here. So hope that makes some sense. I'm going to do, like I said, another video about organizing related to kind of that Big Rocks Challenge that I talked about before, so that you can start getting everything organized. But realistically, your albums are something that is entirely up to you. You organize this based on what how it's going to make sense to you. The Big Rocks Challenge that I'm going to show is an idea that's helpful for a lot of people, but there's no right or wrong way to do this. And as you'll notice, as I've mentioned before, this is where you share pictures with people that you want to, with people who are close to you, who can get back to them without having to ask you for a link all the time or for you to text it to them or whatever. So anytime you're working in organizing your account, albums is like a primary place to do that, just because this is where you organize how other people are able to view some of what you put up here, and it just helps you organize it into a neat way of finding what it is that you're looking for. So with that being said, I'm going to finish this video and we'll talk about tags next.